Going to be talking about demand broadly, some really, really positive updates on the podcast. Going to talk about some social media marketing, and then, as always, your questions. So, open to questions. Uh-oh. There we go. I'm going to leave a comment here. Have a question. Leave a comment. Leave a comment. And I will answer live. Bear with me, folks. It takes a second to get this whole thing spun up. I hope you are all having a wonderful day. So I wanted to start second story light. How you doing? I wanted to start by ranting briefly about demand. Then, like I said, I'm going to get into an update on the podcast, which I think you guys will really, really like. And then third, I want to talk a little bit about social media. And then any questions you have, I will 100% prioritize those, because that's the fun thing about doing these lives, is being able to answer your questions. I might even do an Instagram audit in there. But I want to talk about demand broadly. I see so much advice online about how to go about selling the art and what techniques or tactics to use. Like, oh, you're an artist creating originals, just sell the originals and don't offer prints all the time. Instead, do print drops, right? Just do print drops. That's the smart way to market. Or there are formulas for how you price your art, and you use those formulas, and those formulas work every single solitary time, right? Or sell merch or don't sell merch, or market on the socials or don't market on the socials. And a lot of times the advice that is given, I can't but help noticing it's given by the people that have already generated demand for their art, where there is already a market for their art. And what I've found is that, like, when you have demand for your work, you can do anything you want. Just about any and all marketing technique, tactic, strategy is on the table. You can price via formula. You can do print drops. You can only sell originals. You can price your art at 50,000 and up. But it only works, if you generated demand for your product. And the majority of artists and photographers don't have that demand yet. And then what they end up doing is they end up putting in place a bunch of these strategies because they see a big successful artist using them, and then it doesn't work for them. And what you've done is you've wasted a bunch of time on a marketing strategy, a marketing tip, a marketing tactic that's not going to work for you because you haven't solved the demand thing yet. Generating demand for your work, for your product, is a step you got to take to get where you're going at a macro. And I'm gonna do a new podcast episode on this. And by the way, the podcast is getting like an official rebrand and reboot. When I come back, I want to talk about Kelly for a second, actually, because she was just on it. But if you guys have never subscribed to it, it's on Spotify. It's called the Art Marketing Podcast. It's also on Apple Podcasts. I've got like 25 episodes in the can right now that have not been released. That's our snazzy new logo. So we're in the process of going through a rebrand on it, updating the logo, and then coming with just a magnanimous amount of new content. And one of the really fun things that we've been able to do recently is I've started interviewing customers, customers that are at, all of these various different stages of the game, from in year one, just getting started, in year two, picking up speed, in year three, finally starting to generate consistent and regular sales, and some that are up in the upper echelons, and everything in between. And the hope in this new series is that you get to hear from a bunch of different artists, a bunch of different photographers, a bunch of different creators at the various different stages at the game, and just see what happens in their careers and how you can relate to it and everything else. And it's funny because I was just the last interview that I did, and some of you guys might have seen it on Instagram Live. It'll come onto the podcast in just a minute, but it was with Kelly. And Kelly's, full-time artist. She's been a full-time artist for like 5 to 6 years, and she's just in a really, really good place. She's in a good place in the sense that she's in a handful of galleries. She's doing a bunch of sales online and direct herself. She's in a local gallery where she's painting, and she's totally content, right? She's totally content about the work-life balance and what she can do and everything else. And I had this interview with her, and because I interact with so many of you guys that are struggling to get demand in the first place, when I see an artist that has generated genuine demand for their product and they're leaving money on the table, it actually infuriates me. It infuriates me because I'm like, no, don't do that. Like, this business could be so much bigger. Do you know how hard it is because you've made the leap of generating demand for your product? And, I was just emailing her in my like specific, advice for her is like she needs to start opening her own galleries, because she's in a bunch of galleries and selling really well in the galleries. But the paradigm of an artist or a photographer that has demand and needing a gallery to do everything, I feel like is just gone. I feel like it's just gone. Like, you guys do not need galleries anymore if you generated demand, right? Like if your work is selling, like I don't want you waiting around. Like I want you opening your own gallery, getting it going on, and keeping 100% of that revenue and knowing who is purchasing your work. So that was the discussion I'm having with Kelly. But I'll take the first question, which is, I found the prices for prints are so much higher than who I was using before. Can you explain why? I'm not sure if you're a customer, Jennifer, or if you are not. Are you comparing the same media types to the same media types? If so, that's where I would do the comparison. Like, is it the same products? Pretty much all of the printers, whether it's our printers or whether it's outside printers, have sort of inflated their prices along with everything else, just because everything else is more expensive. So that might have something to do with it. But sometimes what happens is that at your old printer, you were using a different media type, and at the new printer, you're using a higher end media type. And a lot of times I find that explains it. But generally speaking, all of the printers recently have been certainly raising their prices. This inflation is absolutely real, right? It is absolutely real. So okay, yeah. So Jennifer, who are you comparing the two between? Like your local shop and Bay Photo, or I don't know if you're a customer or not, but you can give me some indication on that. So okay, so we talked about demand. We talked about the podcast really coming out with some amazing new episodes. I just recorded an episode today that's getting edited up. It'll be on the podcast later today, about how to leverage direct mail, okay, in your marketing, and not even direct mail per se, but in postcards that you dropped off on people's houses, or you pay someone to drop off on some houses. And I know that sounds crazy, but I find that it to be an extremely effective way for artists and photographers to get attention in today's day and age. No, the G Clay Factory, a large company. Yeah, my guess is that, like, Jennifer, the biggest difference between print shops is like the media type that they use. Like that is how they cut costs primarily. I mean, sometimes it's the inks a little bit, but usually most of the big guys are all apples to apples, the same prices, because margins are margins and everything else. But for those of you guys that are just joining, doing an opening session about or about any art and photography, creative marketing techniques and tactics that you guys want to get into, I am happy to answer any and all questions that you have. I want all of you guys to subscribe to the podcast if you've not done that already, the Art Marketing Podcast, because I really do have a ton of very, very good episodes coming up with a whole myriad of different techniques and tactics, because it's hard. It's hard getting traction, getting demand, like I was referencing earlier. Like, it's like one of the hardest things to do as an artist or a photographer early on. But man, when you get it, everything changes. I want to pivot briefly to social media. And, we're living through quite possibly the biggest change in how these social media networks operate that I've certainly seen since the early days of my career. And you could say, like, early on when Facebook started, early on when Instagram started, those were the golden days. Those were when, like, you would get followers and 100% of your followers would see 100% of your posts. That was amazing. That went away. The next phase was you would get followers and a small portion of your followers would see your posts. If you wanted more of your followers to see your posts, you had to pay for it. Well, with TikTok's entrance into this market, Gary Vee calls this the TikTokification. I've seen other people call it interest-based algorithms. Social media networks, and this is happening on all of them because they're all copying one another, but it's happening on YouTube, it's happening on X, now Twitter, it's happening on Instagram, it's happening on Facebook, it's happening on YouTube. We are now in a world where the social networks are showing the content you create to people that do not follow you based on whether or not those folks have an interest in the content that it knows that you've created. Its algorithms are so good. The information that you are giving the algorithm, in addition to the podcast, or in addition to, sorry, I saw Lynn's comment, in addition to the image and the video itself, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all of them are saying, hey, here's some content about abstract art. go and show this to the people that like abstract art. This represents like a massive, massive, massive sea change in social media marketing in general. And it's incredible and it favors the little guy. But it does not mean that marketing on the socials is easy. I still believe it is one of the best venues to get yourself out there as an artist or a photographer, to get yourself noticed, because everybody is carrying one of these all day long and they're just looking at it. Their face is glued to it all along. I don't know what that says about our society, but there you go. And Lynn, quickly, I'll tell you, it's called the Art Marketing Podcast. You can just search Art Marketing Podcast anywhere you find a podcast, and that's what it is. But why am I bringing this up? I'm bringing this up to say what you post on the social media networks. Okay. And let me preface this by saying, like, I get everyone's frustration with marketing on social media. I have frustration with marketing on social media. Most of the time, the frustration is I keep posting and I keep posting and I keep posting and I'm not getting anywhere. I'm not getting any traction. I'm not getting any interaction. And a lot of times I'll end up looking at these accounts. Okay. And when I look at these accounts, what I notice almost universally is all you're posting is your art. Posting your art, posting your art, posting your art, posting your art, posting your art. That's it. There's not a lot of posts about you. There are certainly very few posts that can answer the question, is this something that has nothing to do with my career as an artist at all? And oftentimes the answer to both of those questions is no. And that's really, really hurting you guys in your social media marketing. Art sales, like I always say, are 50-50. They are 50% the quality of the product itself and 50% who you are as an artist. That is the nature of this business. You guys are the brand just as much as the art is a brand. Art sales are not exclusively a meritocracy on how good the quality of the art product, the photograph, the fabric art, the jewelry, the whatever you're selling is. It's also who you are, what makes you interesting, what makes you tick. And everyone goes, yeah, Patrick, I get that. And yet, when I come to your social media sites, all I see is the art. Image of the art, image of the art, image of the art, image of the art, image of the art. Okay. And it doesn't work, you guys. It's very, very hard to grow a huge account. Okay. Unless you're extremely, extremely creative. It's very, very hard to grow a huge account that way, being a regular creative, a regular artist. Like, unless you're doing something that looks utterly, completely different than what everyone else is doing, it's very, very difficult to make it that way. And sort of the analogy that I give is like, an art sale is sort of like forming a relationship, right? And if I sat down next to you at the bar, okay, and we ordered the same beer, we strike up a conversation. How you doing? I'm Patrick. I run the marketing department for a company, and I like fishing. I like riding motorcycles. I play with my 2 kids. I love dogs. I love cooking. I like gardening. These are some of the things that I'm interested in and that I do. What do you do? I'm an artist. I'm like, okay, that's awesome. You're an artist. What else do you do? I'm an artist. So you're telling me you're an artist? Yeah, I'm an artist. I'm an artist. I'm an artist. I'm an artist. Like, you have to think about your social media profile as a relationship. It's a relationship with an algorithm, right? But an algorithm really just equals attention. It's a relationship. It is where you tell the story of who you are as a creative. And if I sat down with somebody, sat down next to you at the bar or at the coffee shop, wherever, and we were sat next to each other on an airplane, and every word out of your mouth is, I'm an artist, I'm an artist, I'm an artist, look at my work, look at my work, look at this photo, I'm an artist, look at my work, look at my work. That would be an extremely awkward relationship. That would be an extremely awkward conversation. And it's an easy way to think about the content that you are creating for social. If you think about it that way, and you're like, okay, I actually have to hold a conversation here, and I've really got to mix things up a little bit, everything in your social media marketing will start changing. You will get more engagement. As a result of getting more engagement, you are sending a signal to the algorithms of the various different platforms that your content is interesting and that they should show it to more people. And the people that engage with your art content before will see that content. And then the people that engage with your non-art content will see your art content. And that is like a very, very easy mental model on how you want to potentially approach your marketing. And you can't phone it in. You can't just put onesie twosie here or there. Like, you literally have got to give us a world a window into your world, who you are, what makes you tick, where you live, what makes you interesting, because all of that is part of your brand. Now, you can tightly control whatever it is, okay? But give us a window into some interests that you have that are in addition to creating art. Do you have any of those? We all have those. And guess what? There are people that will find all of those things interesting. It will make for a more interesting conversation. When you start posting that type of content instead of just your art, just your art, just your art, just your art, you will instantaneously get more traction on social. You will get more comments, you'll get more likes, you will get more messages, and you will get more shares. All of which is going to encourage you that you are on the right track and you will start growing on the social platforms. It is so hard to do with just art. Now, I'm not saying there's not been accounts that have done it with just art. There are unicorns. There are people that are like incredible that just post that stuff, right? Like I'm thinking, you guys have all seen this artist that paints like tiny little figures, like little kids doing things, and then takes a hammer and chisel and breaks the frame, right? Like it's a little kid swinging a baseball bat, and then they swing the hammer and break the frame. That is like anything else on the internet. That is why that guy's getting away with just creating those types of images, or gal. I don't know who's doing it, right? Like it needs to be the split. And yes, Jay Morris, it needs to be the split. If you guys can all just ask yourself, what is something that I can create for the socials that has nothing to do with the fact that I'm a photographer, that has nothing to do with the fact that I'm an artist? If you guys can just get in a mode and get in a zone to start creating some stuff in that capacity, reels, carousel posts, stories, and you can't just do one. You can't just do one. So many of like the millennials and like our younger customers, came up in a generation where like Instagram that copied Snapchat was all just about the stories, right? And the stories were the most important thing that you could do. And as long as you did the stories, that was great. But the stories disappear in 24 hours, right? If I hit your profile, I can't see all of that awesomeness that you had created in your stories. I need to see that awesomeness. I want to see that awesomeness. I want to understand who you are as a person. Like I can't get behind you as an artist or a photographer without understanding what makes you tick. It's very hard for me to get bonded to you just based on the art alone without figuring out whether or not we have some shared interests. If we have some things that I enjoy, that you do, that I also do, right? So that's what I would say. All right, Brett's asking me an interesting question. I'm going to put this up on Facebook so everyone can see it. Hold on, I'm doing it now. But don't say that you're going to do it and then don't go and do it, because that's what everybody's been doing recently. And I'm like, where's the stuff about you? Are we better off with one theme with reels or a variety of random stuff? Brett, a variety of random stuff like will let you know, especially with consistency, what works best for you. What works best for you, right? But like, you guys are all interesting, creative people. And I know some of you are introverts. I'm technically an introvert. I hate being on video, but this is my job. Okay. And I understand how the platform works. So I do these things. But you guys, like, you can still do you and be the introvert and not like being on video and everything else. But you're creatively wired the way that you are for a reason. Apply some of that creativity and how you create some of these things that you're seeing out there that you're interested in, that makes you happy. And guess what happens? Instantaneously, someone out there is gonna be like, wow, that's me too. I'm interested in that. That is a passion that we share. I'm going to ask them a question about that. And then the next thing you know, because they did that, because you interacted with them, now they're starting to see more of your art posts. It's just so hard if you're just in one lane. Here's my art, here's my art, here's my art, here's my art, here's my art. Like you'll never be able to reach the audience that you potentially could just by doing that. Okay? Just by doing that. Crystal's asking me if you need a website. There's not any one way to do it, Crystal. Like, there are lots of people, there's lots of people out there that have art businesses that don't have websites, and that works for them, right? Now, I would argue in today's modern age, 100% of us need a website. And don't take that cynically. It doesn't mean you need one with us. You don't need one to art storefronts, okay? The reason everyone needs a website is because you're going to sleep. You're going to need to have multiple conversations at once. You want your art always to be available for sale, right? And if that is the case, you got to have a website that can do that for you, right? And sadly, Instagram's not enough. But you know what, Crystal, you don't need one right out of the gates if you don't want one, right? Like if you want to do some other stuff, you can do some other stuff. Well, see, this is a perfect example, right? Technically, Ben here just shared that, like, he makes pots for cactuses, right? And because he makes pots for cactuses, guess what? I like cactuses. I live in the desert. Okay, technically, Southern California is technically a desert. I've got cactuses around. I'd be curious to know what kind of cactus pots you make, right? Just by sharing a little bit, I figure something out. And yes, you can sell those products with us as well. Like all creatives of all stripes all have the same problem, right? It's a marketing problem, right? It's an attention problem. And that's sort of what we specialize in, is keeping creators motivated, keeping creators inspired, teaching them how to market and get their name out there. And it's not easy. It's the number one struggle that every single solitary creative, for the most part, has today, is dealing with today. And of course it's not easy. It's definitely not easy. But for those of you guys that are just joining, answering any and all questions after the next few minutes you might have about your art, your photography, your creative marketing. We talked a little bit about demand and how important that is to have. We talked about some crazy new episodes I have coming on the podcast, including one about direct mail marketing, not mail marketing, but like postcard marketing, which no one is talking about. You know what's crazy is, like, I came up with this analogy, which like sort of explains it. Like, I'm 45 years old, right? And I've been on the planet long enough that I like remember the 1980s, okay, Mercedes SL hardtop convertible. Like when I was a kid, that was like a hot car, like, all the beautiful ladies drove those and all the rich guys had them in their garage and everything else. Then, 10 years later, it's not so hot anymore. And then those cars are starting to be parked outside, and then they have like a dent in the fender, and then the paint starts to fade, and you're like, yeah, whatever. Well, now enough time has gone by that it's starting to be classic again. Okay, my contention, and this is totally out of left field, and again, I've just recorded a podcast episode on this, so you can deep dive. Direct mail, the mailbox, and the porch drop, okay, for marketing stuff, is back in vogue. Like there is a whole entire period of my life where you would go to the mailbox and there would be more junk mail than normal mail. And there's still a decent amount of junk mail, but not like there was. And it is like so uncompetitive, a postcard that's either in your mailbox or dropped on your porch, that it's now like in vogue again. Like the old car that was like hot, it became hot, direct mail and marketing like that. And then it went away and it was just chewed up, and now it's cool again. Everything just recycles. So I have a really, really good podcast episode on that coming up. Okay, I want to see this question. I'm answering, don't worry. So if we already have a website, is it easy to change it to fit your format, or how do you handle artists that already have websites but are interested in your services? Yeah, Maya, it's really easy. You can keep your existing website and use one of ours, or you could just leverage us for the marketing, knowledge if you were so inclined. But we build the website for you currently, so you don't even have to worry about building the new one. We will help you get all that stuff onto your new art storefronts install, assuming you did sign up. So that's how it goes. And we usually recommend, like, unless you have the thriving, robust business on that other site, it probably makes more sense just to switch to ours, because it has a bunch of bells and whistles that yours likely doesn't have. That's usually the case anyway. But all right, guys, who else? Questions, comments, concerns as we keep office hours rolling along? I'm trying to think what else that I wanted to show on Instagram. Does that resonate, by the way, with you guys that are still listening? To post some stuff that's not just about your art. Post some stuff that's not just about your art. You guys will all start growing so much faster. Like so many people are so quick to dismiss social media because they don't understand it, and they're like, I gave it a shot and it just didn't grow, and it just didn't work for me. And it's like, you have to be contrarian about the fact that it's got nothing to do with whether or not it worked for you. You have to be contrarian about the fact that this is what people are on all day long. If you want their attention, you have to figure out how to get their attention on this, right? That's what I would say. How many creative pieces do you require to create the website? One. That's it. That is all you need to get started. And Crystal, sort of my takeaway on that is like, and again, do not take this cynically. Okay. I want your art up on a website and I want you to start on your journey. And it doesn't matter to me if you do that with art storefronts. We'd love to have you. Don't get me wrong. But if you do it somewhere else, that's okay too. The point is that what artists and photographers routinely do is I'll just get started when I have the bank account. I'll just get started when I have my logo done. I'll just get started when I know what my brand is. I'll just get started when I have a series of 10 images. And there's never a perfect time to launch. You're always going to be embarrassed by your first version. Just launch, get that baby in the water, and start working on it, because that's when you learn. That's when you learn, like, what is your most valuable stuff? What should you be selling? What direction should you go in? You start making forward progress, right? Here's a great question. I love this question, and I'm a little opinionated on this question, but I'll explain it. So, what's the real scoop on SEO in the platform? I've seen the document on the knowledge base, but it still isn't hitting home for me. Yeah, so on our platform, we do automatic SEO for you, meaning between your product title, between your description, and us knowing what the item is, our software automatically writes the SEO descriptions for you. Most people think SEO, well, SEO is just a super loaded term, right? What most people think is I type some simple things in the back end of my website. Google finds it. Google puts me on page one and people start buying from me. And that is not the way that it works at all. Like, you putting in the correct meta information and then product titles and page titles, which our software does for you, that's just the start of the game. What SEO is really is generating links to your website such that you will rise in the search results for the keywords that you know will effectively help you sell your art. And if there's not a ton of competition on the keywords, it's a little bit easier to get there, but you have to build links and do a ton of stuff to get SEO really working. And in my experience, there are very few artists that do incredibly well based on SEO alone. A lot of that has to do with the fact that some of the early players in SEO got in on the ground floor, took up all the real estate as it pertains to art. I put Fine Art America squarely in this camp. Like, that's their claim to fame as a marketplace. They got in there is like mega early, and it's really hard to displace those results. So, even for the artists that take SEO kind of seriously, it's really hard to get onto the first page. And even if you do get onto the first page, you don't know whether or not that's a keyword that's actually going to work for you, right? So that's what I would say. All right. Okay. You're just a homebody daydreaming about being an actual artist, being an artist at heart, but I'm so terrified because it seems too big to achieve, and I won't even pull the trigger on anything left here, just daydreaming and make lots of stories, photograph, sketch. You are so inspiring, not tech savvy. You got to just start taking steps, Priscilla. That's it. You got to just start taking steps. Like, the crazy thing about you guys as a group, okay? You guys as a macro group, and I'm stereotyping here, but not really. There is the Hotel California problem, okay? What is the Hotel California problem? The Hotel California problem is you can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave. And why do I play that clip? I play that clip because what I continue to find with you guys as artists and photographers is this desire to create, to listen to the muse, and the need to create. It never goes away. Ultimately, the desire to want to create, to want to put that work out there into the world, and then usually get the validation that comes from selling it, it doesn't ever leave you guys. It's just a way that you've been created by God or whoever you think created you. And once you realize that, once you come to terms with it, you realize it's why it's Hotel California. You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave. The muse is never going to come off your shoulder. You're always going to be wondering, Priscilla, unless you give it a shot and you go for it. And, in your case, try and do something small to start out with. Like, try to do a local fair show and exhibit some of those things and see what happens, right? Or you can print out a couple of those things, have the garage sale, and put some of your art in there and see what happens, right? Like, there's so many ways to take that first step, but you got to take that first step. She's like, oh my God, did you just read that? I did, Priscilla. But it is my desire to encourage you in your endeavor that does that. And Kelly, I don't know if you're still watching. I just sent you an email. Actually, I had you up on the screen share before because I was talking about our episode. I was talking about how frustrated I am. I want you to open your own gallery. But I just sent her that email actually too. But I'm still answering questions, guys. So if you got them, fire away. Happy to answer any and all art and photography, creative marketing questions you guys might have. I'm gonna go for a hot minute more at the very least. You know, I did get a ton of feedback too on the last live that you guys want me to do individual episodes where I just audit Instagram accounts, one after another, after another, after another. You are able to throw them into the question box, and I will audit them. So I'm going to start doing some of those. Yeah, this is a great question. So picture perfect. You're obviously a customer. What is the benefit of MailChimp that the website already does email? We're sort of in a transitionary phase where, you know, unless our customers really, really want to have MailChimp, they won't need to. We're gonna become a full-blown ESP, and we're sort of on our path to doing it. The benefits of it currently is MailChimp's program is a little bit more advanced than ours is. So, you know, there's some things that you can do with MailChimp that you can't do with ours yet, but we're rapidly catching up to all the things that matter, to all the things that we think that matter. So it's a nice way that, you know, our customers are going to be able to save a little bit of extra money to not have to pay for an email service provider, which will be cool. And, you know, we can control it, right? So that's what I would say. So can the website be built from images off our phone versus camera photography? Yes, absolutely. It can be built off of just your phone. And I love just the phone. Now, just the phone will totally work to have it up on a website and to be able to show the art to folks. Okay. Where it doesn't work great is in reproducing your work. All right. But here's how I like to operate. I love get the stuff up on the website with the cell phone, get an order, then immediately call that person and be like, you know what? Can you wait an extra week until I ship your print? Because what I'm going to do is I'm about to get my work rephotographed, and I want you to have the highest quality print possible. And they'll say yes. And then you run out, get somebody to photograph it professionally, and then reproduce from that. I love launching in that fashion. I think that's awesome. So that's what I would say. So I know follower count doesn't necessarily matter, but what is the average follower count of artists have with ASF? Do you start see people making those purchases? The number doesn't matter, right? It absolutely does not matter. That's the crazy thing. Like I have seen, we have customers, okay, that have 5,000 followers on Instagram that outsell customers that have over 1 million. If I'm lying, I'm dying. Okay. We have customers that have 1,000 to 2,000 people on their email list that are full-time artists feeding their families. It's not just about a vanity number, either on the email list or the Instagram list or Facebook followers. Now, I want all of you guys to have a huge email list and to have a huge follower count, because I do believe that offers more revenue potential, but it doesn't a big business make. It just doesn't. It's more about the connection that you have with the people that are on that site, and you don't absolutely need huge follower accounts to get there. It's sort of counterintuitive. It's actually extremely frustrating. I wish it, you know, I wish it directly corresponded, but it didn't. So don't feel like you have to kill yourself, you know, with this follower count or the other. Now, the one thing that I will say is that I believe in today's day and age, especially for artists, that the Instagram profile is sort of the credit check for artists. What do I mean by that? Like if let's say like I just found out about you, right? And I can see that you're on YouTube and you have a YouTube handle, and I'm like, oh, this person's art looks pretty awesome. I need to check this person out. Where they're going to go check you out is usually on Instagram. And if they hit your profile and you have 6 followers and no posts, they're going to be like, is this a serious person? Not really. I'm probably out. Right. Like the way that I liken the follower count and having like a minimum follower count. And for our customers, we sort of recommend to get to 1,000 and to have a number of posts. So you can look like an artist that's active. You can look like an artist that's actually doing something, like you have a little bit of street cred, right? And it's sort of the, it's the baseline social proof is what I like to call it. And it's sort of like, when we're going to buy a product and we're thinking about buying a product and then we Google it and then we look on Amazon and we read the reviews on Amazon, like, and then we go buy it, or maybe we buy it from Amazon. I feel like that happens in the art and photography world. Like, people want to know more about you. And so what do? They hit your Instagram profile and they're like, is this a serious artist? Is this someone that's on the up and up? Would I want to buy something from this? Can I learn something from this person? And if you pass that test, you're good to go. But I think, even probably 500 followers would do it, and at least some active posting, I think is very, very important. Yeah. Okay. So more of you guys are definitely interested in an audit. I've got to figure out how to get like a keyboard for this thing so I can get the accounts up really, really quickly and like look at all of your guys' stuff. So that's what I would say, but I'll do that. This was fun. You guys like really pumped a lot of questions in here this time. I feel like there was like 50 questions, which is huge, which is growing, which is why you guys got to ship live broadcasts yourself, because they just work. They really are fantastically effective, I think. Yeah, and so awesome. So you're 50 away from 1K and you about 10 times a day. Dude, if you keep that, dude or chick, I don't know, dude or gal, I don't know. If you keep that consistency, Ifrit, you're going to kill it. You are going to kill it. Okay, so where's the, Ifrit, throw your Instagram handle in. I want to look at this. So I post about 10 times a day. I've been on fire and made the starting of posting every day for 100 days straight. I am supremely confident that Ifrit is going to have a big business, because if you can put in those kinds of reps and sets, like the things that you've learned about your posts and how good you no doubt got on posting as a result of that is going to translate to how you storytell in all of your marketing going forward. And here, I've got it. I'm pulling it up. So let me see. I want to see how you're doing. Pharaoh. See, this is what I'm talking about, where I need a keyword. Otherwise, you guys would just be sitting here watching me as I try to put in everyone else's. Pharaoh's kind of, because if you make one like wrong typo, then the whole thing goes astray. So let's check out what you got going on here. All right, so Thero Schuyler, they, them, artist, visionary artist, pianist, and composer, aka Ifrit's Realm. So you got two handles going on, which is awesome. Cold working in glass, shop fine art prints and originals. Okay, immediately, yeah, you're at 949, you're growing. I love that you have a nice photo of your smiling face. Okay, like people want to know who you are, so that part is great. Visionary artist, pianist, and composer. There's a lot going on in there. Okay. There's a lot going on in the bio. And I'm sort of just auditing yours now from top to bottom. So we'll just talk about it. I like contemplating how you guys might appear in a search engine in your Instagram profile. So a lot of people are searching, right? And are people searching if it's for visionary artist? Or I'm calling you Thera now. Are people searching for a visionary artist? Not really. It's a bland keyword. Tell me exactly what kind of artist you are, right? Give me where you are in the world, because I like that popping is a word. But okay, so let's see this. So you got a bunch of links in here, which is great. So buy originals, prints, and merch. Pianist and composer. Contact, inquire about commissions, all available original artwork, newsletter sign up. Okay, I like that. I like all of those links. They're good. You're not rocking any story highlights. I would like to see you rocking story highlights. They're very, very important. What are story highlights? I'm going to just go to my profile. Those are these guys right here in the middle. And a great way to think about story highlights is they're kind of like the menu to your website, So you want to do home, about me, prints, originals, bestsellers, contact, commissions, like that kind of thing. Press, if you have any. So I'd like to see you get some story highlights in there. But love it. You got skills. It's an amazing piece right there. Okay, so now you're doing the piano thing. You're multifaceted all over the place. But I love that you're rocking the carousels. See, I'm a dog person. Pharaoh's a dog person. I now know that. Okay. So we could potentially talk about dogs. I am actually more inclined to like Thera because I know he's a dog person, because I love dogs too, right? Which is why we post these little worlds into our personal lives. So you got some time lapse, going my process. Yep. Grooving, getting your thing on, getting your hand paint on, which is amazing. But yeah, you are posting here, a lot, which I love to see. So your reels all look like they're mostly reels, are they? Yeah. So good. Here's some personal stuff. My friends and I went to the Final Fantasy Remake Orchestra tour. See, here we go. Here's a little bit not your art, and I do want to see some more not your art. But I love your consistency, right? And like, how much are you learning by doing the consistency? Like, you're getting better and better and better at this. Like, and I bet if I scroll back a bunch, they're not quite as interactive as they are as you move on. Although that's crazy interactive. You're well, dude, the way that you do your painting. But I love it. You definitely pass the smell test, right? Like in terms of a profile, in terms of looking like an artist. It's on the up and up. I would love to see some story highlights in there, and I would like to see a little bit more window into what you're doing when you're not creating your art and putting that down. So that's what I would say. That's my quick audit of that one. You find that my advice here is like mega redundant, all the time. I got to see if I missed any other questions. If anyone has a last question, throw it in. I will go for it. Otherwise, my voice is failing me today. I've been talking literally all day long. I don't know how people do these live streams for like 5 hours. Yeah, my pleasure, dude. Thanks for the comments. You've been on here leaving comments for like a month, and I noticed that, and I appreciate it because it makes the show way cooler, than just me ranting all the time. All right. Would you say the most important difference between Instagram? Okay, I want to get this. That's a great question. I know exactly what you're asking, so I'm going to answer this. So, what would you say is the most important difference between an Instagram career and the more conservative gallery approach? I don't think they're mutually exclusive personally. I think in today's day and age, because the galleries have all the leverage, i.e., so many of them went out of business during COVID, that the supply of artists and photographers stayed the same, and the supply of galleries went way down. Because so many went out of business in COVID, and so they have even more leverage than they had before, and they're even choosier in who they select than they were before, and they love selecting the people that make their jobs easy. Well, who are the people that make their jobs easy? The ones that have huge social media followings already, because they know they're not going to have to do as much work. The artist is out there and has this big following. So my position is the better that you're doing on Instagram, the better that you're doing on Facebook, the better email list you're doing. All of that just represents momentum. The more galleries that you will have that would actually want to approach you, the more galleries you have that will want to carry you, the easier it'll be if you knock on a gallery door. And the biggest difference for me, though, Ernie, and I should say I've been doing this for enough time now that I've got to see a number of different artists and photographers in year 7, year 8, year 9, year 10, and such, right? And if you're not building a collector list, if you are not building a list of people who and you can contact that have purchased your work, you sort of have nothing at the end of the day. Because this was like really like profound, okay, during COVID, when COVID hit. So COVID hits, and all of a sudden everyone's at home, every gallery is closed, and a bunch of working artists and photographers that had a regular and steady livelihood, or at least steady-ish. It's very, very little steady in this business, right? It's always up and down. But they all had these steady income streams because they were in galleries and they were doing great. And then all of a sudden the tap got turned off, and there wasn't a damn thing that they could do about it because they had no idea who was purchasing their work. They didn't have a social media following. They didn't have a large email list. They had nothing except their work. And so without the gallery, they had no ability to sell on their own. They had no idea who their collectors were. And I feel like that's a death knell for an artist long term, right? Like, if you don't know who's purchasing your work, you have no ability to market to them in the future. You have no ability to get them to come back and purchase again and then become a collector. And many of you guys have seen me hold up his book, but for me, this is like a must buy, must read book. Like Weiland's one of the top 3, top 5 artists in the United States, maybe number 1. He's the whale guy. He owns a number of galleries in very affluent towns, I guess would be the right way to say it. He owns one just down the street from me in Laguna Beach, actually. He's got a couple in Florida. He goes really in depth. And by the way, I think that book is available as an audiobook on Spotify for free if you guys have a Spotify. Otherwise, you have to buy it from his website, excuse me. Like, he defines a collector as someone that will purchase an upwards of 7 pieces of art from him over the course of a career. And the collectors for you guys end up becoming the 401k of the business. It's the base salary of the business, i.e., you keep creating year after year after year. And because you have this group of collectors that you can contact and let them know you have new work, they just keep coming back and buying again and again and again. And they will be with you for your entire career as long as they're still alive. And if you go just the conservative gallery approach, you'd better hope the gallery loves you all the way to the end. Because if they don't, you have no ability to market to your collectors. And I really don't like that for artists and photographers. I'm pro any revenue source an artist or a photographer can get to work. And we have a ton of customers that are in galleries that are doing great, that do more business in galleries than they do online. And that's fine. That's awesome. I just don't believe in the conservative gallery approach as a zero-sum game, meaning you can't just do the conservative gallery approach. You have to pair it, okay? You have to pair it with building your own attention, your own email list, your own Instagram social media following, people that you can market to in the future, because the gallery can rip the rug out from underneath you at any point in time. And, art and photography absolutely follows the power law, okay? And what do I mean by that? The top 0.01% of artists make 90% of the revenue that's available in the art industry, 80% of the revenue that's available in the art industry. But it's such a small number that gets there. Like, it is such a tiny, tiny number. And, in fact, I read this book that's so good. And Ernie, I apologize. I'm going so deep on you on this, but I'm passionate about this. Do I have the damn Amazon app from this? I don't. How can I do it? I know I can do it. So there's this book called, I believe it's called The $12 Million Stuffed Shark. And bear with me, you guys. I want to get this. I think it's a $12 million stuffed shark. Yes, got it. This book. Okay, let me share it. So this is the book. It's on Amazon, and it's a little bit old now, but you guys should all read this one too, assuming you guys are readers. Assuming reading is your jam, or listen to it or whatever. It's only $14, but it's the curious economics of the contemporary art market, right? And it's absolutely stunning, the data that's revealed in this book about the contemporary art market at a macro. And like, I used to have the data saved. I probably do if I could pull up my Kindle highlights, my whole computer. It's more than I can do right now. But the stats on this, Ernie, are really depressing about the number of artists that make a significant living in the gallery model. It's like the very, very tippity top do extremely, extremely well, right? They're killing it. It's sort of like, I always liken it to, it's like, the number of people that play a sport versus the number of people are in the NBA or MLB or whatever, any of the sports leagues. So I don't hate the gallery model. I love any revenue source that works. I just don't like it in exclusivity, because I think you expose yourself long term, and I don't want any artist or photographer to do that. But okay, I'm out of steam. I hope that was valuable. I promise I'm going to audit more Instagram accounts next time. Thank you guys all for the comments. I appreciate each and every one of you, and everybody have a great rest of your Tuesday. All right, bye now.